Double agent in one piece, from Rox Pirates to World's Most Wanted. Please like, share and subscribe. Episode 11. On the surface of the sea, it was raining heavily. There was a loud roar of thunder and lightning in the sky, and from time to time a loud lightning bolt appeared. In the rainstorm, Lynn floated in mid-air, huge dragon eyes, staring dead at Riley. Riley was stared at by the behemoth in front of him, and he felt a little stressed. But I wasn't too afraid, after all, the strength was there, not so afraid. Riley, I did it. Lynn politely reminded him first. Boom. Suddenly, with a loud bang, dazzling blue lightning swept across the sky, illuminating the sea, and slashing at Riley. Riley also reacted, jumping to the side and slashing out a sword with force. The sharp sword split the sea, cut through the space, and flew towards Lynn in mid-air. Lynn could catch the movement of the sword chi, quickly extended a hand, and the dragon's claw grabbed at the sword chi, and then squeezed it hard. Soon the sword chi was crushed by Lynn. However, Lynn was not so relaxed, after all, it was the sword chi of the great sword Hao, and his wrist also felt a faint pain. Fortunately, the scales are relatively hard and covered with domineering, otherwise ordinary people really can't hold on. Come again. Riley didn't care, continued to raise the western sword, and then slashed more than 10 swords in a row. The dense sword chi, like a rain of swords, flew towards Lynn in the sky, blocking all routes. Lynn turned around, and with a strong flick of her wing, it hit the sword chi just above it, shattering all the sword chi. The invisible air currents exploded, setting off waves on the surface of the sea. The two sides clashed so fiercely. Although Riley is very powerful, but Lynn is not bad, the battle between the two sides, into a stalemate. Lynn roughly estimated that Riley's comprehensive strength should be slightly stronger than his, but slightly inferior to Whitebeard. But all this is just Lynn's speculation, and it is not certain that the real battle, there are many factors, and no one can guarantee victory. Roger fights Whitebeard while keeping an eye on Lynn. He could see that Lynn was very young, should not have fully grown up, and in a few years, when Lynn was completely an adult, he was an enemy again. The only good thing is that Whitebeard, or anyone else, doesn't have much of a home for the Rox Pirates. Maybe at some point it will be separated. Otherwise the Rox Pirates would be a big pervert. The battle lasted for more than half an hour, and there was still no difference between Lynn and Riley. After another moment, Lynn suddenly separated from Riley, flew far away, and opened her mouth. At the same time as opening the mouth, a large amount of black flames converged from the lungs in the mouth. Lynn also noticed that her flames were black and emitting a very hot heat, as if in a crater. Although it was different from normal flames, Lynn didn't care too much, and kept her eyes on Riley. Riley also noticed the flames in Lynn's mouth, cold sweat on his forehead. It's so terrible, I didn't expect that the Rox Pirate Regiment actually has so many perverts, it looks like it will have to hide for a while next. That's right, face the entire Rox Pirate Regiment. Even the future One Piece Roger can only find a place to hide, and does not dare to confront Rox. The roar of the Black Dragon. Lynn let out a roar, and the flames in his mouth exploded in an instant, forming a huge pillar of fire, and flew towards Riley. Before the flames could get closer, Riley felt the heat coming from his face, sweat pouring down his forehead. It was as if I was taking a sauna, and I was covered in sweat and even my clothes were wet. It's really not really terrible. Riley couldn't help but say a word, his pupils narrowed, and he quickly flashed to the side, and the flames passed by Riley's side. If you take a step slower, you will be hit head-on by this flame, and no matter how strong you are, you will also be seriously injured. Fortunately, at the crucial moment, Riley dodged it. Although Riley dodged, the giant pillar of flames hit a sea surface in the distance. Boom! An even louder voice sounded. The sound was so deafening that even Riley couldn't help rubbing his ears and making a buzzing sound in his head. Suddenly, a huge mushroom cloud rose on the surface of the sea, constantly tumbling, and the black flames burned even the sea. The surface of the sea water was evaporated in an instant. A lot of hot air is constantly rolling, and the surrounding sea water is boiling, as if it were a hot spring. Many fish, shrimp, and sea kings on the seabed were all burned to death, and the smell of burning was heard in the air, accompanied by the smell of meat. Riley looked at the tumbling sea in the distance and couldn't help but swallow. Such a huge explosion, once it was affected by the front, even if he was covered with domineering, he would not be able to bear it. Fortunately, this big explosion can still be dodged. Lynn was also shocked. The center of the explosion was more than 10 miles away, but the mushroom cloud that was generated was actually close at hand. It's already worth a nuclear bomb around here. It's just bad luck, and I will also spill over. Just don't call the roar of the Black Dragon anymore. It's called the Black Dragon's nuclear bomb. Don't fight you, I'm gone. Riley turned and slipped away. Although I had beaten Lynn, it would take at least a long time, and it would be worthless at all, so it was better to leave here. Not far away, Roger saw the retreating Riley and did not want to continue fighting. Whitebeard did not move, quickly retreated, and returned to his pirate ship. After all, there are still a few cadres in Roger's pirate regiment, all of them are very powerful, and he is only here with him and Lynn, and it is not convenient to continue fighting. If you continue to fight, it is not necessarily an opponent. Lynn also turned into a human form and landed smoothly next to Whitebeard. Episode 12. The battle is over, and we should go back. Lynn looked silently into the distance. Roger's pirates have disappeared. Whitebeard looked at Lynn with some surprise. I didn't expect you to progress so fast, even Pluto Riley was scared away by you. It seems that you are getting stronger and stronger. No way, Long handsome people, the talent is generally very good, I am because the Long is too handsome. Lynn flicked her hair deliberately. He felt that he was getting more and more handsome, and he was very happy in his heart, and he was not far from reaching the top of the world. Whitebeard gave Lynn a blank stare. What is Long handsome? He didn't think Lynn was handsome, but Lynn was talented, and it was really obvious to all. But for a while, Lynn grew up to be able to deal with Riley, and after a while, maybe she could deal with Roger. Let's go back. Whitebeard didn't say much, and with a single order, the pirate ship turned around and headed for the base camp. Roger, on the other hand, was curious. Riley, that teenager, isn't that really good? Although he had just seen the power of that nuclear bomb, Roger was still curious. Don't say it, this little devil is a pervert, so old, he has such a strong strength, but if he really fights, I won't lose. Riley is still quite confident in his own strength. Even if Lynn is a little perverted, he is not bad, and it is uncertain who will win or lose. Roger didn't ask much, just silently looked into the distance, this direction, which was the direction where the Rox Pirates were located. The Rox Pirates had become more powerful, and it seemed that he had to find a way to solve the Rox Pirates. A few days later, Lynn and Whitebeard finally returned to the base camp of the Rox Pirates. Lord Whitebeard, Lord Lynn, Captain Rox invites you to come over. As soon as he reached the shore, a pirate hurried over, still gasping for breath. Got it, we'll be there right away. Lynn sent the pirate away, then strode forward and waved at Whitebeard. Whitebeard followed suit. However, just 2 steps away, Whitebeard suddenly reacted, always feeling that something was wrong. Wait, Lynn, don't you walk ahead of me, and don't wave at me, don't know, and think you're my boss. Whitebeard reacted to this. Look at Lynn's action, it is clear that it is an action against the little brother. Don't care, whoever the two of us are with, I will reluctantly accept you as my little brother. Lynn smiled indifferently. Whitebeard's face turned black, and the large knife in his hand slashed hard, and the knife slashed down with his back to Lynn. No matter how wordy, I'll fight with you. Lynn stomped lightly and then moved to the side, as if in an instant, and flashed away in an instant. Well, no nonsense, hurry up, Rox is looking for us to have something, presumably what a big deal. Whitebeard didn't care. His strength is also very perverted, and although Rox is more powerful, it is not so easy to defeat him. It's just that this pirate group, for various reasons, has united many top sea thieves. In fact, there is no unity at all. Not long after, the two entered the palace together. As soon as Lynn came in, there were a lot of eyes on Lynn and Whitebeard. Lynn, I've already heard that you actually beat Riley back, and it's really quite powerful. Sure G put his hands on his chest and looked more ordinary. There is neither envy nor admiration. Rox also looked at Lynn silently. He was actually quite surprised in his heart that the little famous Pluto King Riley in this world could not take down Lynn. It seems that Lynn's strength is very strong. Lynn didn't say a word and walked to a corner, leaning against the wall with one foot propped up. Whitebeard was also standing next to Lynn. The whole conference room was divided into many parts, and most of the people sat alone. This is the current state of the Rox Pirates. It has been divided into many groups. In the original book, Rox gathered so many top sea thieves and eventually lost, most likely because of uneven people's hearts. Gentlemen, it will not be long before the days when the heavenly gold escort of the Draco, and I have decided to snatch these heavenly golds. As Rox spoke, he glanced at the crowd present, and most of them didn't care. They are all the top sea thieves in the new world, how can they care about this? Even if this is the heavenly gold of the Draco. Since everyone has no opinion, then go back and prepare, and in a few days we will set off, and none of the heavenly gold ships of the whole new world can return to the Great Channel. Whitebeard took the lead and left, without saying anything, and the others followed Whitebeard one after another. Lox seemed to have gotten used to it. Lynn quickly walked out. Next, it's another big battle, Whitebeard said inexplicably. Lynn didn't interject, and as a former CP0 member, Lynn was also aware of the situation in the new world. Over the years, the battle between Lox and the world government has become more and more intense, and from time to time a fierce war has erupted. Lox is also ambitious, in a vain attempt to overthrow the rule of the Dracos and dominate the entire world. It's just that Lox doesn't know that most people don't have such thoughts except that he does. They all know that world governments are not so easily solved. Lox doesn't understand the human heart. Don't care so much, if there is anything, that's a matter for later, we just have to live our own lives. Lynn said suddenly. Yes, there is no need to care so much. Whitebeard thought about it carefully, or he thought too much. Episode 13. On the calm surface of the sea, a warship is slowly sailing. This warship is the warship of the Navy, which is responsible for escorting the heavenly gold. At the bow of the warship stood a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man has explosive hair, a beard tied into a braid, and looks very strong. He was still wearing a naval uniform, and the cloak of justice fluttered in the back. This is the Admiral Sengoku of the Admiral Headquarters. Also, the future Marshal of the Admiralty Headquarters. The warring states were fighting in the bow of the warship, looking at the sea in the distance, and their hearts could not calm down. In fact, he did not want to be responsible for escorting the heavenly gold. Because he is well aware that the conflict between the world government and Lox has been very large recently, and a big war will break out on both sides at any time. The heavenly gold he is responsible for escorting is likely to encounter a sneak attack by the Rox Pirates, and it will be a big battle. The warring states only want to be able to make their own sailing. Unfortunately, the sky is not the limit. A pirate ship has appeared in front of the eyes of the warring states. Sengoku sighed helplessly. It looks like there's a need to fight. Nearby navies were also ready for battle. Many navies clenched their steel guns and looked forward nervously, sweating on the backs of their palms and hands. Even the navy uniforms were wet with sweat. After all, this time it was facing the strongest pirate group in the new world. This new world of pirates for more than a decade. He has repeatedly confronted the world government and navy, rarely retreating, but the world government cannot help him. In the face of such an enemy, the pressure is particularly high. Sengoku faded his coat and stared at the pirate group in front of him, and a golden light suddenly appeared on his body. Soon, a huge golden Buddha appeared on the deck of the warship. Appeared, the great Buddha fruit of the Warring States General. The Warring States General will definitely win. All navies are hopeful about the Warring States. It turned out to be Admiral Sengoku. Lynn touched her chin. He was still quite curious who the enemy he encountered this time was, but he did not expect that it was the future admiral. That's pretty good at this time. Lynn also took off her coat, and then opened her hands, and many black scales appeared on the surface of her body, and her body suddenly became larger. The next second, Lynn turned into a black dragon hundreds of meters high. In terms of body size, Lynn's black dragon form is much larger than the Warring States Buddha form, but the height is somewhat similar. Animals are Esper species, when did Lox still have such a powerful person? Sengoku was also shocked by Lynn's strength. Originally, the Lox pirate regiment was already perverted enough, but I didn't expect that now there was actually another perverted master. It also meant that the Rox Pirates were more difficult to deal with. Giant Buddha shockwave. The warring states stretched out their hands, and it was a huge golden shockwave, and everywhere the shockwave passed, the seawater was scattered. Lynn stretched out a huge dragon claw and slapped it hard, hitting the shockwave head-on. Bang bang bang. A series of large explosions occurred on the surface of the sea. Countless waves are constantly lapping and superimposing, and soon a huge wave is formed. The ships on both sides were shaking violently. Lynn stepped forward, stretched out a huge dragon claw, and slapped it down hard against the warring states. Dark dragon claws obscured half of the sky. The black light and the golden light on the Sengoku body contrasted. Sengoku also raised his hand, and the palms of the two clapped together. Bang bang bang. The battle between the two sides became fierce in an instant. One is the future admiral, and the other is Lynn, who already has the strength of a general. They are all people who are already at the top of the food chain, and no one can help the other. So don't look at the battle is particularly fierce, the fire is hot, the sea is full of explosions, and the sea is even more terrifying waves. But no one actually got hurt. Great, is this the new cadre? He was able to fight with a Navy admiral. The pirates were a face of worship. This is how the strong should treat. Above the sea, Lynn and Sengoku fought for a while, and neither of them could help the other. Pirates, you look very young, you should have just joined the Rox Pirates, or you don't join the Navy, you don't have to fight for the pirates. Sengoku saw that Lynn was very young and powerful, and suddenly the idea of recruiting Lynn arose. How good it would be for such a good young man to join the Navy. Their Navy needs such good people. Lynn was about to do it, when there was a sudden pause, and he remembered that he seemed to be a spy for the world government. Specialized in undercover in the Rox Pirate Regiment. Since getting the system, he has become very excited, and he has forgotten his identity. Rox wanted to do something to the heavenly gold, and he did not report it to the world government. Should it be reported to the world government? Lynn had a quick storm in her head for a moment, and finally decided to ignore the world government. After all, I have hated the harsh environment of CP0, and I have long since stopped wanting to go back and accept CP0's life. Instead of helping the world government do things, it is better to make a knight of overlord yourself. Wrong. The world government is still very useful, and Lynn can temporarily fool the world government, so there is no need to worry about the encirclement and suppression of the Navy. By the time his forces and men no longer need to fear the Navy, they can put the world government aside. It's a good idea. Lynn decided to give it a try, maybe he could fool the world government and buy himself enough time to grow. The warring states also thought that Lynn was moved, so he just looked at it and did not move. Not long after, Lynn returned to God, and the huge dragon eyes looked at the warring states, and the warring states who watched were a little nervous in their hearts. How's it going? How are you thinking about it? Do you want to join our Navy? Episode 14. Oh, do you want me to join the Navy? Lynn emphasized it again. The pirates listened a little confusedly. Is Lynn really going to join the Navy? Wait, Lord Lynn, you're a cadre of our Rox Pirates. Yeah, you can't join the Navy, and when we overthrow the world government, the Navy will be finished. The pirates present were in a hurry. Whether the Rox Pirates can overthrow the world government is not very clear. But one thing is certain, once Lynn joins the Navy, these pirates are finished. They were not sure against Lynn and the warring states. Shut up. Lynn interrupted the pirates, then set her eyes on Sengoku's body. You want me to join the Navy? Sengoku was a little excited in his heart, and he really thought he could persuade Lynn. If you cannot fight, then it is better not to fight. Do you have any beautiful women in your Navy? Lynn asked coldly. Everyone present was confused and did not react for a while. The warring states, in particular, don't know how to answer. He thought to himself that Lynn might make demands, such as money and status. If it's money, you can give a few 100 million Baileys, or even 1 billion Baileys. After all, Lynn is very powerful. If you want to talk about status, how can you also give the status of a vice admiral? If it is too bad, you can also come to an alternate admiral. The status is equivalent to that of a general. But I didn't expect Lynn to actually ask if there was a beautiful woman. This was a bit of a surprise. How? Don't you guys in the Navy have decent beauties? Or do you Navy like men, and you usually like each other? Lynn's eyes were a little strange. Sengoku can clearly see that Lynn's expression in the form of the black dragon is a little strange, and it is a little uncomfortable to watch. We in the Navy, there are still a few nice beautiful women. I know one, called Ahi, and I don't have a boyfriend yet. Do you want me to introduce you to you? In order to be able to win Lynn over, Sengoku thought of his colleague Lieutenant General Tsuru. The Navy's faces were a little strange. Sengoku actually wanted to introduce Lieutenant General Tsuru. I just don't know if Lieutenant General Tsuru knows about it, he will not be mad. Lynn also thought of Lieutenant General Crane. When I was young, it was really good, and now it should be very young, at most it is more than 30 years old, and it should still have charm. If you can play with Lieutenant General Tsuru for 2 days, it seems to be a good choice. Lynn immediately wiped the corners of her mouth. Fortunately, there was no drooling, otherwise she would be embarrassed, and she would be a little embarrassed to face these people. Sengoku's face turned black. He suddenly found that Lynn seemed to be an old leper, not knowing whether he should be invited to join the Navy or not, whether he would break the Navy. Lynn quickly returned to God. Since you said so, then I can only make a decision not to join the Navy. Very well, since you agreed to join the Navy, then I will. Sengoku paused suddenly, looking at Lynn in surprise, his eyes full of incredulity. What did you just say? If I don't join the Navy, haven't I already promised to introduce a beautiful woman to you? You fool, you introduce me to a beautiful woman. I'm in the Rox Pirates, and Rox can introduce a lot. One in many. What do you think normal people would choose? Of course, I chose many. Lynn gave Sengoku a blank stare. He certainly couldn't have agreed, and in the Rox Pirates he could find as many beauties as he wanted. Not to mention that he was originally an undercover agent of the world government. How could he join the Navy? Sengoku could see Lynn's contemptuous eyes, and his face instantly turned black. He was actually despised, and he was also tricked by Lynn. It was estimated that Lynn had no intention of surrendering at all. Boy, since you don't agree, then I can only take you down. Sengoku held out his hand, and a golden light appeared from the palm of his hand. Giant Buddha shockwave. The golden shockwave exploded, pierced through space, and flew towards Lynn, but was slapped by Lynn. Boom. Once again, the two sides fought fiercely together. The battle lasted for half a day, and suddenly a storm came, and the Navy said that the storm had fled, and Lynn did not continue to pursue. He is not stupid. Even if he pursues it, he may not be able to take down the warring states, plus he still plans to fight with the world government. Naturally it is impossible to fight hard. So taking advantage of the storm, Lynn gave up the hunt and took his men with him, preparing to return to the Rox Pirates. On the deck, Lynn sat cross-legged with two pirates next to him helping with umbrellas. Lynn didn't go back into the cabin. Such a powerful storm, if he wasn't careful, in case the whole pirate ship overturned, it would be over. You should still be a little more careful. Fortunately, the storm did not last long. By late afternoon, the storm had stopped. Lord Lynn, we didn't grab the heavenly gold. What about Lord Rox? The pirates nearby were a little nervous. After all, Rox is brutal, the whole pirate group is brutal, and they are afraid that Rox will be angry if they do not complete their goal. Calmly, with me in front, what are you afraid of? And this time we are facing the warring states, the admiral of the admiral headquarters, and it is only natural that we will fail. Lynn wouldn't have been worried anyway. And he guessed that there must be many people besides him who had failed. After all, it was the world government that was opposed, not the whole of them. It is true that with the exception of a small number of people who succeed, the vast majority of people fail. The other pirates were less worried when they heard Lynn's words, and they hoped that Lynn would take responsibility. Half a month later, the ship gradually reached the base camp of the Rox Pirates. Episode 15. At Rox base camp, Lynn arrives just in time to see Whitebeard arrive. Whitebeard also saw Lynn and walked straight ahead. Lynn, I heard that you met the warring states. That guy is still very powerful. You have no problem, right? Rest assured, although I did not succeed in taking it, I am not a warring country that can be defeated. Lynn was quite confident. With his current strength, it is definitely not ordinary people who can defeat him. Even if it is the naval hero Cap, he wants to retreat, he can easily do it. Whitebeard didn't say much. He also knew Lynn's strength. He wanted to take it. It wasn't so easy. Otherwise, the Navy had chased and intercepted Roger so many times, and it would not have been possible to catch it once, because on this vast sea, it was difficult for the strong to catch it. Okay, let's go in. A lot of people didn't make it this time. Whitebeard walked in first. Lynn didn't care. He'd heard about it, and indeed a lot of people hadn't succeeded. After all, the world government had long known about Rox's plan and must have been prepared, and only a few people were taken down. A group of people soon arrived at Rox's mansion. Rox looked at the crowd that walked in, not too angry, and he didn't expect success. If this large-scale departure can really succeed, it is strange, and he may suspect that this is a conspiracy of the world government. Everyone just came back. Take a good rest, this time, enjoy it. Rox left first, and Lynn and Whitebeard didn't care too much. The two had long been accustomed to Rox's personality. After leaving the room, Lynn sighed. Alas, what else to enjoy, and not to know to provide a beautiful woman, no beauty to enjoy so much. Whitebeard and the pirates behind them all laughed. Not to mention, there really should be a beautiful woman. Lynn, do you want beauty? Then let's go together and I'll take you in search of the beautiful woman. Whitebeard patted Lynn on the shoulder. Perhaps, it was a good decision. Lynn touched his chin. He had joined the Rox Pirates for less than half a year, and he didn't know much about it. Maybe Whitebeard knew a good place. He really needs beautiful women, so cool. Lynn, do you need beautiful women? I can give you a good refreshment, as long as you and I have a baby. Big Mom suddenly ran out from the side and stood in front of Lynn, still with anticipation in her eyes. She wanted to have a baby with Lynn. Lynn's face changed suddenly, and she looked at the children behind her aunt again. Both are about 10 years old. He didn't want to suddenly have 2 more children who could play soy sauce, and he always felt a little weird. I'm just kidding. I once swore that I would never go to a woman without some achievements. With that, Lynn left. He was really a little overwhelmed by the mother, that hungry look. Lynn's how to shiver. This woman is terrible. Big Mom had some regrets and could only leave. Whitebeard laughed and followed Lynn. At night, Lynn was resting when the phone suddenly rang. The sound of the phone instantly woke Lynn. Lynn immediately sat up and looked at the phone bug in her hand, a little nervous inside. He remembered now that he was an undercover agent of the world government, a member of the secret spy organization CP0. It was most likely a call from the world government. Lynn thought for a moment, then answered the phone. Hey, what's the matter? Lynn, why didn't you inform us of this time? Lynn's familiar voice came from the other side. He knew very well that it was the 5 old stars, the supreme power of the world government, who said this. Wasn't this intelligence known to the world government long ago? There is no reporting value at all. Lynn's tone was somewhat calm. He is no longer the Lynn he was before, he has the system, and he has his own future. If it weren't for the fact that the 5 old stars were still useful, he would have turned his face long ago and didn't recognize anyone. How could he still talk to the 5 old stars? The 5 old stars did not hear that the tone was wrong, but felt that Lynn was right. Because this really doesn't have reporting value. And Lynn has become a cadre. They feel that Lynn is more valuable. Naturally, it is impossible to be angry about it. Don't forget who you are, we can train you and we can dispose of you. Although the 5 old stars felt that Lynn was important, they still decided to knock it out. As everyone knows, the object they are beating is lying on the bed, quite leisurely, so they send a glass of wine and find a beautiful massage. As for the warning of the 5 old stars, he had already forgotten about it and did not care at all. You can rest assured, I understand my identity, this time the action, my goal is the warring states, I am not too desperate. Lynn continued to flicker. The 5 old stars still believed it, because they had already indirectly asked about the warring states. It was easy to learn about the battles of the Sengoku. Poor old star, Lynn simply did not want to fight, and more importantly, was still unsure. When he became stronger, he was the first to turn his face and not recognize anyone. Very well, you have to be obedient, otherwise we can let you have everything, and we can make you lose everything. The 5 old stars just hung up the phone. Lynn looked at the phone in her hand and sneered dismissively. Idiot, let you have to wait for a while, and when I assemble my own team, then there will be nothing for you to do. That's right, Lynn plans to take the opportunity to form his own team after the demise of the Rox Pirates, and then achieve a kingly hegemony. As for the world government, there is still use value. Lynn put the phone bug away, then found a place to lie down and get ready for a good night's sleep. Episode 16. Lynn, congratulations, you've got the bounty. Early in the morning, Whitebeard hurried in. Lynn sat calmly, poured herself a cup of tea, and took a sip before looking at Whitebeard. It's not a bounty, I'm not nervous, you have nothing to be nervous about. Lynn really didn't care about being rewarded. After all, the attacking heavenly gold, even if he was undercover, but the Navy did not know, so he did not pay attention to it at all. Also, there really isn't much to be nervous about. Whitebeard gently threw the newspaper out of his hand, then sat down next to Lynn and poured himself a cup. The two of them just tasted it. Not to mention, this wine tastes pretty good. Whitebeard nodded solemnly. Lynn gave Whitebeard a look. It's tea. Whitebeard didn't care and continued to drink. After drinking tea, Lynn picked up the newspaper on the table and looked at it carefully. The photos in the newspaper are still so handsome. In particular, the black dragon form is also particularly handsome. The bounty of 500 million Baileys is still quite a lot. This bounty is indeed much more special. After all, being a newcomer has such a high bounty, which is absolutely unique. That is, after all, you can go head-to-head with the warring states, that's a Navy admiral, the bounty is less, and some of them are not worthy of your identity. But you still have to work hard, your current bounty is far from me. Whitebeard praised Lynn and showed off himself fiercely. Lynn was about to say something when there was a sudden pause. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, successful in getting a bounty, or a gift package. The system suddenly came up. Lynn didn't react to it, the system actually has a gift package, isn't it an annual reinforcement point? By the way, Lynn remembered. It is true that the systems have said that you can get reinforcement points if you achieve a certain achievement, and it has not been said that you can't get a pack. Maybe it's a random one of the packs and reinforcement points. Lynn wasn't too entangled. Whether it was the reinforcement point or the gift package, it was quite important. It is impossible not to give a gift package for free. It's a pity there is no reinforcement point if you can have both. System, open the achievement package now. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, successfully obtained the peak of One Piece Roger's sword skills. Roger's pinnacle of swordplay. Lynn thought about it carefully. It was indeed quite handsome, especially Roger in the anime, just one knife cut Mitsuki Mita. Even able to duel with Whitebeard peak. As long as his physique is improving a little, and his domineering spirit is improving a little bit, he can achieve a peak strength comparable to Roger. Then you can fight Whitebeard. Even more against Locks. Lynn, you seem to be happy. What's so happy? Whitebeard couldn't help but ask. Oh, nothing, just wondering, should I go get a knife? I want to learn swordplay too. Learn swordsmanship? Isn't your physique quite strong? Why learn swordplay? Whitebeard was somewhat curious. Most people in this world focus on a little bit, and few people learn so much. Not to mention that Lynn was still a demon fruit ability of the Esper species, which could be cultivated well, and there was no need to learn swordplay at all. It doesn't matter, I'm a talented person, I can learn a little more, just to increase my own background. Lynn didn't want to learn at all. Does Roger's peak swordplay still need to be learned? He only needs to find a good sword, and then he will be one of the top swordsmen in the world. There is no need to train at all, and no time is wasted. Well, I'll take you when the time comes, and see if I can find a good knife. Whitebeard didn't think much of it. After drinking the tea, Whitebeard took Lynn with him to his treasure trove. Although Whitebeard didn't care about any treasure, he had some of his own collection and a good sword in it. Lynn, this is my collection, you see if you like it, if you want it, just take it. The Whitebeard opened his hands, quite generously. In this way, it is similar to a rich man. Lynn was also not polite, walked into the treasure house, took a closer look, and then waved a big hand. Here comes the people, move me all away, I want it. The white-bearded man turned black, stumbled, and almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, it was stabilized at the last minute. Lynn, what do you want to do? It's good to give you a little, you still want to move it all. He was too brazen to shoot Lynn to death now. You have waved your hands so much, you look like a rich man, a special battle, then you can only take the initiative a little. Lynn said politely, and then looked closely, there was gold everywhere in it. It's hard to imagine that Whitebeard in anime is not interested in money, but there is so much money. Don't talk nonsense, let you choose a knife, you choose a knife, don't allow too much, otherwise, don't blame me for not being polite. Whitebeard had a black face and didn't want to say anything more. Lynn didn't care, looked at it carefully, and finally chose a good knife. Very sharp, although not a famous knife, but also a good fast knife, but unfortunately the grade is too low, there is no name of their own. Just this knife, I want it. This knife is really good, although it is not the top knife, but it is also good, it is very suitable for you. Whitebeard did not stop it. Okay, let's go to the beach and learn swordplay. Lynn walked out first, followed by Whitebeard, who also wanted to know how Lynn's talent was. To learn swordplay, it must not be too bad, and it will certainly be humiliating to say it. Episode 17. On the shore, Lynn arrives with Whitebeard, ready to accompany Lynn to get used to his swordplay. Shirji was also right on the shore, and when he saw the two coming, he put his hands on his chest and looked at them carefully. Why are you two here? Can I help you? After saying that, Shirji noticed the famous knife in Lynn's hand again and was even more curious. What, Lynn, do you want to learn swordplay too? As a great swordsman, and also one of the world's top swordsmen, Shirji is very confident in his swordplay. He felt that as a member of the same pirate group as Lynn, he must help Lynn well and pointed out. Yes, I am ready to learn swordplay, but unfortunately, my talent is relatively poor, very poor, and no one else is willing to teach me. Lynn sighed slightly. It doesn't matter, just try it, you're an animal Esper breed demon fruit ability, you don't need to learn at all. Whitebeard comforted Lynn. Shirji was even more proud and flew to Lynn's side, pulling out his famous sword Sakura 10 and Dead Wood. Lynn, I am a world-class great swordsman, and I can even say that I am the world's #1 great swordsman, and it is up to me to teach you personally, and I can definitely become a swordsman in a short period of time. As for making Lynn a great sword master, Shirji himself did not have that confidence. Well, why don't I practice now, you can point it out, maybe you can give me some advice. Lynn humbly accepted the opinion. But don't get me wrong, accept the opinion now, and then he will punch him in the face. No problem, you try it now, let me see your flaws, and then remind me a little. Squire clasped his hands to his chest and was particularly confident. He was the world's #1 swordsman, and he was still quite sure of teaching Lynn. Whitebeard was very upset in his heart, and always felt that Shurji was too proud. He now wanted Squire to hit the bottom of the sea. Then you look good. Lynn clenched the knife in her hand, and a scarlet red light suddenly appeared in her eyes, and a sharp momentum erupted. Whitebeard and Scrock were shocked inside, because Lynn's momentum was too strong now. There was also a vast sword intent on his body. The strong sword intent shot straight into the clouds, and above such a sharp sword intention, there was also a crimson glow, which stained the entire sky red. The original bright sun, the blue sky, and the white clouds were all shrouded in red light, and the whole island was affected. This is the sword intent of the world's top great sword master. Just by his own will, he can change the sky and cause such a big impact, and it can also be seen that Roger is powerful. After all, this was Roger's pinnacle of swordplay. Lynn didn't use domineering, and his physique may be a little worse than Roger's, but the influence was so great. Such a terrible sword intention, the sky is stained red with this sword meaning, very powerful. Big Mom couldn't help but say something in amazement. Lox also raised his head and looked up at the sky. This sword intent he had seen only in one person, Gord Roger. But there are some differences, slightly worse in intensity. Not only Lox but also the cadres were surprised, and ordinary pirates, especially those on the seashore, were shocked by Lynn's strength. It's terrible, is this the strength of the Lynn cadre? Yeah, it's terrible, just standing next to it, I feel like I'm being watched by a ferocious beast. Even Whitebeard couldn't help but exclaim. The breath of a beast, a strong sword. Of course, the most surprising thing was Scotty. Didn't you just learn swordsmanship? Doesn't it mean that talent is more clumsy? Such a powerful strength and such a fierce sword intent are definitely not a swordsman who has just learned swordplay. It is a top swordplay that has been addicted to swordplay for many years. Although some did not want to admit it, Shurji still had to admit that Lynn was no worse than him in terms of swordplay. It can even be said that the talent is even more powerful than him. After all, Lynn was much younger than he was. When he was Lynn's age, he had just become a great sword master, and he was still much worse than the top sword master. Lynn was almost brewing, and his right hand would be clenched, and then slowly raised. Above the arm, a layer of red breath surrounds the arm, and even the knife in the hand is stained red. The next second, Lynn slammed her sword, and a dazzling red light soared into the sky, tearing open the space, and everywhere she passed, it was shrouded in red light. However, in a few moments, the red sword burst into the sky, cutting the entire sky apart. Boom! The sky was completely divided, and a black abyss appeared, dazzling and attracting attention. Many people's eyes were enveloped by this black abyss, and their hearts felt extremely shocked. It's terrible, and that's Lynn's strength. Lynn herself was shocked, this is the strength of the world-class sword master. In another 2 years, when his physical skills and domineering spirit have reached the full level, he will have a strength comparable to or even surpassing Roger. If you think about it more carefully, Lox has been dead for only 2 years, and by the time the Rox Pirates are completely destroyed, he has reached the peak of the world. When the time comes, you can form your own team. Just think about it and be happy. After Lynn returned to his senses, he turned his head to look at Shurji next to him, and the tip of the knife gently hit the ground, with a very bright smile on his face. Shurji, my swordplay is really bad, can you give me a little guidance? I also want to become a swordmaster sooner. Squirming's face twitched. This is still called relatively poor, and I still want to become a sword master. This was clearly already the world's top sword master, and let him teach it. In terms of pure swordplay, he was just half a pound and 8 with Lynn, how to guide Lynn. Whitebeard also had a sadistic smile in his eyes. Episode 18, This. I still have very important things to do, and I will leave for the time being, and I will talk about it later. Squire made an excuse and immediately turned and left. He was embarrassed to stay any longer, to instruct Lynn in his swordplay. Wasn't that a punch in the face himself? After all, the level of swordplay between them was similar. Not long after Squire left, Lox and the others came from afar. As soon as Lox came over, he saw Lynn with a sword in his hand and a red sword breath, and his heart was particularly shocked. Who he thought it was, he didn't expect it to be Lynn. It was quite shocking to be so young, physically strong, and even so powerful in swordplay. Lynn, did you send out the sword chi just now? Lox asked curiously. Yes, it was me. When I used to learn swordsmanship, the teacher thought I was too talented and kicked me out. After so many years, my swordplay has not improved much, and sure enough, the teacher is very correct, and my swordplay is indeed particularly poor. Lynn couldn't help but sigh. Everyone present twitched their faces. Even Whitebeard was eager to take the big knife in his hand and slash at Lynn's neck. What is called poor talent? If Lynn's talent is very poor, so many people in this world, there will be no good talent. Locke suddenly felt like he wanted to punch the guy in front of him. If Lynn is poorly talented, his talent can only be considered mediocre. Not to mention, Lynn is quite talented. In another 2 or 3 years, Lynn's physical strength will reach its limit, and her domineering spirit will also reach its limit, and coupled with this peak sword skill, she can definitely become the core member of his pirate group. It looks like Lynn should be cultivated well. By the way, Lynn, I remember there was a kid who provoked our pirate group recently, and you went to teach him a lesson. Locke said suddenly. Lynn was stunned, but didn't care too much, it was just a task. No problem, I just want to see which stunned boy dares to provoke the Rox Pirates. In this world, those who can provoke the Rox Pirate Regiment, in addition to the powerful, are some stupid brains. Lynn believed that this was definitely done by a stupid brain. Because he knows all the powers. Well, that's up to you. Locke turned and left. Big Mama walked over to Lynn's side at this time. Lynn, I used to think your talent was good, but now I find that your talent is not generally excellent, and you have such a superb sword skill. By the way, do you have time? It just so happens that I also want to learn swordplay, so why not teach me? The corners of Lynn's mouth twitched slightly, and a chill welled up in her heart. Did Big Mama go to learn swordsmanship? This is clearly coveting his body, wanting to possess him urgently. Is it really when he's an idiot? There was absolutely no way he could agree to be with Big Mama. The Whitebeard next to him couldn't help but laugh. He wanted to see Lynn's embarrassed expression. Lynn's face turned black and she glanced at her white beard. By the way, Whitebeard, I heard that you have always wanted a family, and I think my mother's children are very good, or you will be their dry father. Whitebeard's body trembled for a moment, and it actually pulled on him again. Big Mom also looked at the Whitebeard, and her eyes were full of greed, this kind of muscular figure, which is her favorite type. Whitebeard, if you agree, I agree that you will be my child's father, and my father will do the same. Even if the father is counted, the dry father is also counted. I am not going to take my son at present, by the way, I still have things, I will leave for the time being. Whitebeard was a little embarrassed to stay, turned and walked away. If he doesn't run away, he will be left behind by the hungry mother, and he will definitely squeeze it clean when the time comes. It's like squeezing coconut water. I'm going to go on a mission, so I'll go first, and if there's anything to do, we'll talk about it later. Lynn also made an excuse to leave. Big Mama looked at Lynn's figure with a sly smile in her eyes and longing in her eyes. Lynn, I'm getting more and more interested in you, and I'm going to take yours, and then you'll be my man. Fortunately, Lynn was gone, otherwise if he heard Big Mama's words, even if he had absolute strength, he would be frightened by Big Mama. After all, although Big Mama is beautiful, but the future is particularly terrible, it is occupied by Big Mama, and it is estimated that she does not want to live. Once on top of the ship, Lynn set off. He also had to find the young boy who provoked the Rox Pirates. Lord Lynn, this is the man's message, take a closer look. The pirate gave Lynn the information in his hand. Lynn took the information, glanced at it roughly, and finally set her eyes on a photo above. It turned out to be this kid, no wonder he dared to do something to the Rox Pirates, but it seems to be an opportunity. That's right, this person who did it, Lynn knew, was the future 4 Emperor's 100 Beasts Kaido. It's just that Kaido's strength is relatively weak, even if he joins the Rox Pirate Regiment, that is, an intern. It is estimated that it became more powerful later. This is also Lynn's chance. Lynn had already decided to take advantage of this opportunity to find a way to take down Kaido, and then he would have one more little brother. After the Rox Pirate Regiment is eliminated, he can also take the opportunity to form a pirate group of his own. If he is strong enough, he can take the opportunity to get rid of the world government and achieve his own hegemony. Lynn had an ambition in her eyes. Pass on the order, speed up, fight for the first time, find this kid. Understood. The pirate ship suddenly sped up, quickly left the sea, and disappeared without a trace. Episode 19, a relatively large island. Lynn's ship slowly approached. No, it's the Rox Pirates. Many people saw the flag on Lynn's ship, and their faces instantly turned pale. This is currently the largest pirate group in the New World. They also did not expect that there would be a Rox pirate regiment coming. As soon as Lynn came ashore, a man came along, with a very flattering expression. "Your Honor, may I ask you?" The man was dressed in armor and looked like a captain, but he had no dignity that a captain should have. "Rox Pirate Regiment Cadre, Lynn." The captain heard Lynn's name and suddenly realized. "I remember, Lynn, one of the senior cadres of the Rox Pirates, in the form of the black dragon of the animal Esper species." People nearby also heard Lynn's name, and their eyes were full of trepidation and uneasiness. The cadres of the Rox Pirate Regiment are all figures standing at the pinnacle of the New World, and they are definitely not the ones they can afford to provoke. "Lord Lynn, do you have any purpose?" The captain's smile is like licking a dog. Lynn didn't particularly care, and casually took a photo out of her pocket and handed it to the captain. "Can you tell me where this person is?" The captain looked at the photo in Lynn's hand and instantly recognized the man. "I know him, he's on my island, and it's supposed to be in a bar on the island right now." "I see, take me now." "Understood." The captain immediately walked ahead, and Lynn didn't think much of it, followed the captain, and soon came to the door of a tavern. Lynn strode in. As soon as she entered, Lynn saw a tall man with a head horn on his head. Just by looking at the back, Lynn knew that this person must be the 100 Beasts Kaido, which was his target this time. Lynn was still excited. His first men finally made their debut. With Kaido, plus himself, with a little more effort in the future prospects are unlimited. Lynn had already begun to fantasize about the future, but soon woke up, walked over to Kaido's back, and tapped Kaido lightly on the shoulder. Kaido didn't even turn his head, just picked up the bottle next to him and slammed it down on Lynn. Lynn was fast, easily dodged, and flashed to the side. "Kaido, I'm sorry, I'm from the Rox Pirates, and this time I'm here and want to ask you to come back with me." Only then did Kaido turn around and look ahead. "How come no one?" Lynn's face instantly darkened. He is actually not short, and he is still quite tall compared to most Blue Star people. It's just much worse than the One Piece world. Especially compared to giants like Kaido, that's far from it. And Lynn could be sure that Kaido definitely saw him, and it was definitely Lynn on purpose. It's so arrogant. Sure enough, it is still necessary to teach Kaido a lesson and let Kaido understand his strength, and it is best not to be so crazy in the future. "Very good, boy, if you dare to ignore me, then I will accompany you to fight." Lynn sneered, gently flicked her arm and then squeezed hard, the muscles in her arm bulged, and the strength in her body slowly exploded. "Oh, that's where you are." Kaido's words were sarcastic and his eyes were full of defiance. Lynn wasn't particularly concerned either. After a while, he was going to make Kaido regret it. Pang! Lynn suddenly slammed into the ground, and the whole person exploded, crossing the distance between the two at the speed of light. Kaido's pupils narrowed, and there was shock in his eyes. The brain didn't react or catch Lynn's movements, and Lynn was already getting closer. So fast. Kaido reacted at this time, immediately raised the mace in his hand, and slammed it down Lynn. Unfortunately, Kaido's reaction was still a little slower. At the moment of his move, Lynn had already appeared beside him, clutching his arms with both hands. The power in Lynn's body poured out, and the thin body threw Kaido's huge body out hard. Bang! Kaido was slammed to the ground and kept sliding into the distance, knocking more than a dozen houses in a row before stopping and falling into ruins. Lynn flashed through the space, and with a violent roar on the surface of her body, she suddenly came to Kaido's normal side. Bang! Suddenly, with a loud bang, a large amount of mud and stones splashed out, and Kaido rushed out of the rubble, grabbing Lynn with one hand. Although Kaido's body is very large, but when he was young, Kaido's body size was not as big as imagined, just like his mother, and when he was old, his body size would suddenly become larger. Lynn held out a palm and slapped it gently, their palms colliding with each other. Bang! Kaido's body took more than 10 steps back, leaving a deep footprint on the ground. Lynn also flew into the air. But relatively speaking, it is Lynn who has the upper hand, and in the end it is Lynn who is more powerful. Kaido was also shocked by Lynn's power. Is this Lynn's strength? I thought Lynn was just an ordinary person, but I didn't expect that the strength was so great, even he was left behind. Come again. Lynn sneered, more interested in Kaido, such a powerful monster, should be his little brother. Bastard, old man, I'll kill you. Kaido stretched out his thick palm and slapped it down fiercely, and the strong force tore through the space. There is a constant roaring sound in the air, vibrating the eardrums. Lynn also revealed a cold light in her eyes, and then slowly pulled out the knife in her hand. Above the blade, a cold light bloomed. The dark domineering aura covered the blade surface, the body of the knife was quite shiny, and the red breath also surrounded the arm. Episode 20, Evasion. Lynn looked at the fierce Kaido in front of him, the knife in his hand, and slashed with force. Red light burst out and rushed straight towards Kaido. Kaido's pupils narrowed, only to feel a red glow in front of his eyes, and the cold glow was piercing. Before they could react, Kaido felt a lot of pain, and Lynn's knife was just above Kaido's chest. Fortunately, at the moment of swinging the knife, Lynn turned the knife in a different direction and slashed the back of the knife into Kaido's chest. Otherwise, Lynn's unstoppable swordplay, coupled with high-level domineering, could definitely cut a bloody hole in Kaido's body. But even though Lynn had converged, the back of the knife slashed at Kaido's chest, leaving a tiny trail of blood. Kaido didn't have time to resist, and the whole person flew out, hitting the wall on the side, and crashing through in an instant. After crashing through more than 10 walls in a row, Kaido stopped, fell on top of a wall, and then slowly landed on the ground. "It's absolutely impossible, I can't accept it." Kaido roared in anger, grabbed the axe in the hand of a pirate next to him, and ran quickly towards Lynn. "It's really not dead." Lynn sneered, not taking Kaido in his eyes at all, or that Kaido was not very powerful now. After all, Kaido was injured by Mitsuki Mita. His current strength was much stronger than that of Mitsuki Mita, not to mention the current Kaido, and it was not as good as Kaido at that time. Kaido ran quickly, and raised the axe in his hand high, and above the axe, a red light also appeared. Armed color domineering. Unfortunately, now Kaido's armed color domineering is still far behind, and it is estimated that it can reach the intermediate level, which is not a high-level application of domineering. Lynn clenched the knife in her hand, waited until Kaido approached, and then slammed into the ground, stepping into a large pit in the ground. Then he bent down, clenched the knife in his hands with both hands, and then slashed hard, and the power in his body exploded. "Kaido, let you see the world of the strong." Lynn suddenly let out a loud roar, and the knife in his hand slashed down hard, and the blade was aimed at Kaido. A dazzling red glow illuminated Kaido's eyes. Kaido gritted his teeth and jumped into the air, using the sprint that fell from the sky to slash at Lynn. A strong stream of air erupted. Bang! Lynn slashed down with a sharp knife, the blade of the knife was aimed at the axe blade, and the two sides collided head-on. At the moment of collision, a roar that resounded through the sky erupted and spread in all directions. Many people in the vicinity felt as if their ears were about to go deaf and their heads were dizzy. The next second, a strong stream of air burst out, and the earth shattered in an instant, and pieces of rock flew up. Click, click, click. The rift continued to widen and spread in all directions, and the nearby houses were affected and constantly collapsed. A huge pit appeared on the surface. Lynn and Kaido were still deadlocked, and the crimson air currents centered on the two of them continued to spread, producing more and more impact. The people nearby were even more shocked. "It's terrible, is this the strength of the cadres of the Rox Pirates? It's terrible." Countless people clenched their hands, full of longing for power, wishing that it was not Lynn and Kaido who were mad at this moment, but them. Kaido gritted his teeth, his hands clenched, and his arms began to tremble slightly, which was also clear about Lynn's strength. He couldn't even accept in his heart why Lynn was so powerful. Obviously, Lynn looks thinner than him, and maybe younger than him, but this strength is so powerful. Lynn naturally noticed Kaido's expression and sneered in his heart. Kaido is still a little bit worse. "Kaido, you've lost." Lynn's right hand became harder, the muscles in his arm bulged, and the vast power burst out. Click. Sharp red light, penetrating axe. A crack appeared on the axe, and then it continued to expand. Kaido's pupils narrowed, and he didn't expect Lynn to be so powerful, even his axe had a crack. Boom. Suddenly, with a loud noise, the axe shattered completely. As soon as Lynn turned, the blade slashed through, and the red sword chi burst out, instantly passing through Kaido's chest, leaving a bloodstain. This deep bloodstain, and the previous small bloodstains intertwined, forming a fork glyph. Ah! Kaido couldn't help the pain and let out a scream, and the whole person flew out, rolling on the ground. If in the future, the 100 Beasts Kaido was beaten so badly, it would definitely shock countless people. That is, Kaido's strength is not very strong, so he was slashed down by Lynn twice. A knife to be precise. Because of the first knife, Lynn wasn't serious at all. In the distance, Kaido fell heavily on the ground, his face a little pale, and his body a little weak. Lynn was too strong, and the knife was also very deep, so Kaido was seriously injured. Lynn walked slowly to Kaido's side and raised her knife to Kaido's point. Kaido, you lost, and from now on, you are my man. After saying that, there was definitely something wrong with Lynn, and that sounded weird. By the way, from now on, you will be my subordinate, and whoever bullies you in the future will report my name, and whoever it is, I will help you cut him. Lynn nodded, which was quite domineering. Sure enough, he was also a man with the qualifications of a king. What about Rox? If he bullies me, will you help me teach him a lesson? Kaido said suddenly. Lynn's face stiffened, and the corners of her mouth twitched. When will Kaido return the mouth? Sure enough, Kaido hadn't been taught enough and needed to be repaired to let Kaido know how good he was. Lynn slowly raised the knife in her hand.